All right. So yeah, this is the first time I am doing a YouTube live. So hopefully everything goes okay. Let me see here. Just pulling up some of the questions. So some questions came in online. I know not everyone can make it, but let me go ahead and we'll give it a couple of moments, maybe a moment or two, for more people to log in, and then we'll start answering the questions. Yep. And then whatever resources we talk about, or whatever kind of different websites or whatever I refer to, I'll put in the chat here that you can see live, or they'll also be down in the description after the video, so you can check those out if you're watching later. All right, so we're going to start answering the questions. The questions that came in via email and messages, we're just going to go in order here. So the first question that someone asked is, I'm interested in startup costs, not so much about setting up the PLLC, but more so when it comes to bringing on clinicians and paying them. And this person is asking about basically when you take insurance, there is a delay in payment. So when you have the session, you submit the claims to the insurance company, and then oftentimes there's this quite a large lag between when you have the session and then when you get paid. And they were wondering, well, then how often do you pay the employees, right? So if you have to pay them every 2 weeks, but then there is like a 3 or 4 week lag between when you have the session and when the insurance pays you, well, then obviously there's going to be an issue, right? You have to pay the employees out of your own pocket is kind of what this person was asking. And so a couple of things to think about here is, well, first off is how you're paneled with insurance, right? And so one question people usually ask me is, or they ask just in general is, can you panel LMSWs with places like Alma and Headway? And the answer right now is no, you cannot. So if you are going to be paneled with an insurance company that you panel with on your own, so you can either do this on your own by establishing a relationship, or not establishing a relationship, but you can contact the insurance companies independently and then be contracted with them, right? So you can get paneled that way, and you can get a group contract. And when you get a group contract, then you are able to have your LMSWs paneled. However, you do have to do all sorts of things in terms of supervision that can get quite complex. But the point here is that if you are paneled outside of Headway and Alma, and you have people under your group practice employees taking insurance, then there is going to be a delay in payment. So then the issue then is, well, how often do you pay them, right? Do you have to pay out of your own pocket, or can you wait until you get reimbursed by the insurance? And then this becomes a question about whether or not the employee is an actual employee, and an actual employee is a W-2 employee. If they're a W-2 employee, then you actually have to pay them every 2 weeks, or it's every 2 weeks for New York State, or once a week, depending on the kind of worker that they are. And actually, I have a link for that. I'm going to put that in the chat for you now. So this is more of a labor issue than it is kind of, so it's more of a labor issue here. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put that where I have that information in the chat for you. Let me just pull that up. Let's see. All right, so here we go. If you look at this website here, you are going to be able to see that New York has a certain requirement for W-2 employees. You have to pay them at a certain frequency. And it seems to me that the insurance companies will pay, it'll take longer for them. So then in that case, then yes, you will most likely need to pay out of your own pocket or from the practices. Basically, it's from the practices funds. So you're paying an employee before you actually get reimbursed. And that can be a bit challenging and a bit frustrating. One of the things about a group practice is that there are much higher upfront costs. There's a lot of things like this that you need to kind of think about. Now, if you have a contractor, this is a 1099, technically not an employee. A contractor is someone that you hire to do a service for your practice. So if you have a contractor, it would be like hiring another therapist who already is fully licensed and can work independently and asking them to do therapy for your practice. If they're a contractor, you have very limited control over what you can ask them to do. So a contractor can make their own hours. They work whenever they want to. They typically use their own tools, their own platforms, things like that. In that case, you are then coming up with an agreement between you and that contractor about when you'll pay them. So in that contract, you can then ask, or not ask, but you can discuss, I'll pay you once I get reimbursed, or come up with some sort of agreement like that. So I know that was a long explanation, but to put that simply, if you have a W-2, the labor laws are going to dictate how often you have to pay them. And it looks like in New York State that this is going to be twice a week for like a W-2 therapist, not twice a week, twice a month, every other week. And in that case, then yeah, there's going to be a discrepancy between paying them and then receiving payment from insurance. However, if they're a contractor, then you and them come up with an agreement. And in that case, you can kind of work around this discrepancy. Right, so there's that. Go ahead and check out the New York website. If you're in another state, you can check the labor laws there. It's pretty simple. Just check a pay frequency of employees in your state, and you should be able to, to find it pretty easily. All right, let's see here. So a couple questions coming in. Okay, yeah. So someone asked about paneling LMSWs in a group practice, and so we touched on this just a second ago. But when you So the question that I answered earlier is that if you're an LMSW or you want to hire LMSWs, you cannot panel them with ALMA or Headway. It just doesn't work. So that leaves you with one option basically, and that is to contract with an insurance company on your own independently. And you want to get what's called a group contract. And basically a group contract is when you go to the insurance company and they all have representatives that you can talk to about paneling. And you say, I have a group practice and I'm going to have LMSWs. And then as you work with them, they will share with you what's required of an LMSW in order to build their services with an insurance company. And oftentimes it's going to be like supervision that you have to provide. So it's different for all the insurance companies, but it could be something like, having to review all their documents as the LCSW, or perhaps you have to, obviously those are standard, right? Reviewing all the LMSW documents, but you might have to be present for certain things. There might be certain stipulations about, treatment planning and does the LC need to be there in person? And I think some of that becomes an issue for the LCs. They don't want to be that hands-on all the time. But it is possible to panel LMs with a group practice. You just have to get that contract on your own. And to get a group contract, you will need a group NPI number. Now, you can just apply for this the same way you apply for your regular NPI, right? So you need that. It's called there's an NPI 1 and an NPI 2. I think the 2 is for the group practice and the 1 is for an individual. So you'll just need that. And then you can contract with an insurance company to go ahead and get LMSWs paneled. So it is possible to do it. Hopefully that answers your question. Someone else asked, do you create an employee manual or handbook to have your employees to reference for rules and expectations for the practice? So I actually asked a similar question when I was first starting. And when I spoke to an attorney about this, he had said that, once, and this was a suggestion, once you get past 5 employees or so, then it might be helpful to have a handbook, but it did not seem to be a requirement for starting. So in that regard, what I have done personally is I have started to build an employee website where I do write out policies, where I do have procedures. And now we're constantly changing those as we grow. And it's a learning experience. So it's not published as like a manual, but I am building out as we go a handbook, if you will. Now, if you want to have a handbook right from the start, there's actually an HR consultant that you can contact. If you're interested in that, I will leave links down below in the description after the video. But yeah, you can have someone write the handbook for you if you want. You can write it yourself. I would suggest having some sort of template so you can get like an HR consultant to do that with you. Even an attorney will help you write that as well. But again, writing the handbook is going to be an investment. It will cost some money to get that handbook. So I took the lawyer's advice, and for the first couple of employees, I'm just kind of, addressing policies. And of course, policies are written out, important policies like what do we do in a crisis, or what do we do? What are the procedures? We have all those clinical policies and protocols in place that we talk about during meetings, and that I have written out on a website, as well as in the employment agreement that I have. But as a formal handbook, no, you don't need that right away. And then someone asked me, do I do W-2 or 1099 employees? Currently, I do W-2 employees, and this is because I do have a vision for my group practice. We kind of operate under the same kind of vision for what that practice is. And with a W-2 employee, you are able to kind of assign work hours. You're able to have kind of different policies and procedures that employees follow. And not to mention, down the line, you can provide those employees with much better benefits. So it's actually not just a benefit for the employer, but for the employees as well. There's a lot more, there's different things that they're entitled to as a W-2 employee. So paid family leave, workers' compensation, this kind of thing. So to have a W-2 employee is going to be beneficial both ways. A couple of drawbacks, though. W-2 employees do cost. It's more costly to have a W-2, and this is because you pay all the taxes for them, right? So you end up paying the taxes and things. And someone asked a question about that. I'll get to that in a bit. So it's a bit more costly to have a W-2, and on top of that, you have to pay for a workers' compensation, paid family leave, short-term disability, and so these are also costs that come with having a W-2 employee. If you have a contractor, then of course you don't pay the taxes. You provide them with the 1099 at the end of the year. They do all their own taxes. However, the law states that you have very, very, very little control over the work that they do. It's kind of likened to hiring a plumber, right? So if you live in a house or a condo and you hire a plumber, you're hiring that plumber to do his plumbing job in your home, but you don't tell him what to do. You don't tell him how to plumb. He does it based off of his own expertise or their own expertise. So you cannot tell them what to do. You don't tell them when to come, right? They have their own operating hours. It's very similar when you have a 1099. So things to think about when it comes to W-2, 1099. What are some of your essential policies? So my essential policies, the things you really want to think about up front are, first off, clinical policies, right? So these are things you have to be aware of. And these are going to be basically the same policies that you follow as an individual clinician. So you want to make sure you're following all ethical and clinical guidelines, right? So in terms of LMSWs, they have to be supervised, obviously. Whoever the LC is, if it's you as the owner, well, then those policies and procedures, you want those to be written out. They could be in an employment agreement. They can be written somewhere, but you want the employees to know that they're also in your practice. They're following the proper clinical procedures. These are typically not foreign to people. Most people know what these are, but you do want to review them and make sure that people are aware that in your practice, you follow all the clinical procedures. And then additionally, you want to think about policies that are important right off the bat, such as emergency situations, right? So if you have a therapist who has a crisis, can they call you? Who do they call? If they're an LM, then they have to be able to call you no matter what time it is, right? Or do you have LC employees? If you have LC employees, what do they do when there's an emergency or a crisis with a client? So the first and foremost, your clinical policies are going to be by far the most important. It keeps you your therapists and also the clients as safe as possible. And then from there, you want to, and these are things you can kind of think about as time goes on, but what are time off policies, requirement for attending supervision, how many clients do you want them to see, these kind of policies. So there are some policies that you do want kind of right off the bat. And again, these can be inside of your employment agreement and things like that. Hopefully that helps. Hopefully that answers your question about policies and things. I think there's like non-negotiable, crisis, clinical, and then there's things that you can change and adapt over time off, that kind of stuff. And then let's see here. Some other questions that people asked who are not here, but emailed. Someone asked, can I have interns work at a group practice? So this is not actually going to be an issue of a group practice or not, because yes, if you have a group practice, you can certainly have interns. If you have a solo practice, in some cases, you may be able to have interns. But when you look at, and I'm coming from New York State, you can kind of determine if this is true for your own state. I'm not certain, but I would imagine that most states have the similar rule. But for an intern, it really is between you as the group practice and the institution where this person is a student. So I know I had contacted some people as a solo practitioner, and they wanted the student, they wanted to make sure that where their students were getting their internship, they were, getting a certain amount of exposure to a certain number of clients and things like that. That a solo practice just cannot promise, at least if you're just starting, right? So having an intern, sure, yes, in a group practice, you can certainly do that. But it depends on whether the school is okay with their students having an internship at a group practice like yours. If you are like a well-established group practice and you have a lot of clients coming in and it's not going to be a problem to fill them up, I would imagine it would be no problem. If you're a new group practice though, and you want to have interns and it's slow to build up and you're trying to kind of work things out that way, the school might not be as willing to have a student get their experience there. But again, it's between you and the school. And in New York State, if you kind of read some of their laws, it looks like they give the school, the place that's educating the person, they give them kind of the decision-making power to decide where they have their internship. And then this again relates to, you have to have a supervisor for that intern, that you need to follow all the proper policies and guidelines that institution kind of lays out. Someone also asked, can you, I think they alluded to whether or not an intern can take insurance. This is going to be a question you ask the insurance company in the process of paneling. I have not asked this question, but I would say I'm about 95% certain that you cannot have a social work intern student bill for insurance. That is going to be my best guess. You can ask them for sure, but I do not think that's possible. When I see people having interns in their practice, I often see them then using a sliding scale. So they'll offer clients sessions with an intern at a much lower rate than they might. In my opinion, having an intern is it's something that you're really investing in because you really want to teach them and help them. You don't want to look at an intern necessarily as someone who's going to be able to take on more clients for the practice. It's kind of more of a teaching role and something like that. But I think you can check with the insurance company for sure. But most likely they will not have that, but you can do like a sliding scale, something like that. Okay, let's see here. All right. One more question. Yes. And then the other question was, which we just answered in some way, was how to add clinicians to your insurance panels. If you have LMs or LCs, it's simple. During the contracting process where you contact the insurance company, you're going to let them know you have employees, and you're going to give them their information, and they're going to panel them with you and for you. Again, the two factors there, you have to have the group NPI, right? So this is the NPI that establishes your group. And then obviously all your providers have to have NPIs as well. This is not too much of a problem. So having the group NPI is going to be crucial. That's free. You just apply for that the same way you get your individual NPI. And then you contract with an insurance company. Now, while we're on the topic of contracting with insurance companies, You can do it yourself. So you can reach out to a representative. You can just go to their website, if it's Health First or United Healthcare, and look for the where it talks about providers, and then you can find a contact. Or there's a lot of companies out there that will panel for you. I think there's tons and tons of places out there that will do that for you. You might want to check with a colleague or something who's done it in terms of the paneling with a company, because there's so many. You want to get a good one. But basically what they'll do is they'll kind of interact with the insurance company on your behalf, and they'll kind of get you paneled. It's much quicker, but it does cost money. Yep, we talked about the interns, and then someone also asked about contracts and the wording you use. I think in terms of the contracts, I think you don't necessarily create the contract with the insurance company. The insurance company is going to send you a contract, and you're going to agree to it. Can you amend it and things like that? Sure, I think you can probably change it and kind of work with them. But most of these insurance companies are going to have just like a contract that they send to all their providers. But yeah, so a contract is something you'd work out between you and the insurance company. And then someone asked, is the group NPI the same as your PLLC NPI? So I'm just going to clarify here. I'll clarify a couple things. So you have an EIN, which is an employer identification number. This often comes with when you establish a PLLC, you get an EIN. That is different than an NPI. However, if you have an NPI 2 or a group NPI, then yes, this would be for your PLLC. Your NPI 1, and I could be getting these backwards, but there's a 1 and a 2. And the NPI 1 is for you as an individual provider. So there are 3 different numbers, and we don't want to get them confused. There's the EIN. This is basically the tax ID number. This is not the NPI. There's an NPI 1 for an individual provider and an NPI 2 for a group provider, a group practice. So the way I kind of think about this, just for the sake of example, let's imagine we have a hospital, right? And there's the hospital. That's going to be your group NPI number. So an insurance company is going to look and say, okay, what's the NPI for the institution or the group practice? It's that. And then who provided care underneath that group practice? That would be the individual NPI, right? And then for the EIN is different. That's for other things, taxes and accounting purposes and things like that. And then yes, so the question is kind of follow up, is the group NPI associated with your PLLC? Yeah, it is. So when you fill out the application for the group NPI, the NPI number 2, then you're going to be able to fill out the information for your PLLC, the address, the different details for your PLLC. Yeah, the group NPI will be for that. Cool. Let's see here. So a lot of questions about the W-2s and 1099s today. And yeah, so I hope to have more of these. I know people are busy and have a lot to do. So we answered hopefully all the questions in the chat. If there's more, I'm happy to stick around for another couple of minutes and answer questions that might come in. I answered the questions that were emailed to us. So we're good for the questions. Hopefully they're all answered. But again, I'll be here for the next 10, 15 minutes. If you have more questions, then please feel free to put them in the chat, and I'll answer them for you. And then once again, if you came in late or you're watching this later, the information will be down below in the description, links and things like that. Okay. Yes, I will be posting I won't be doing a transcript. So you'll just be able to watch the video again for the answers. But I'll reference the different websites that I'm talking about, the laws and the websites and different guides. Yeah, so cool. So if more questions come in, please ask. I'll be hanging out, just completing some documentation, doing some admin work, but I'll be keeping an eye on the chat over here. And oh yes, drinking some coffee as well. So another question, can a 1099 be hired as an LMS? Or basically, can an LMSW be a 1099? Technically, no. In New York State, and again, you have to check it in your own state. But here in New York, an LMSW cannot be a 1099 per the law, right? So that is a legal issue. And the technicalities behind it, I'm not sure. Just to make things clear, none of this is legal advice. I'm not an attorney, but I have started a group practice and I've consulted with attorneys and things like that. And so, yeah, a 1099 cannot be an LMSW, technically speaking, per the law. Now, I do see that some people do this. This is something that, you're going to see people doing all sorts of things. But from my understanding, and I'm pretty confident that that's correct, a 1099 cannot be an LMSW. A 1099 has to be an LCS, basically a fully licensed individual. And like I said before, when you're contracting with a 1099, they are basically their own entity. So you're basically hiring someone who's a private practitioner on their own to do work for you, right? It's kind of that plumber thing. So if you didn't hear the plumber analogy, you can go back and watch that. But yeah, 1099 have to be LC. Someone asked, should an LMSW complete a CAQH profile as well then? So that's going to depend on whether or not you want that LMSW to be paneled. So when you do the contract, so if you're contracting with an insurance company for your group practice and you have LMSWs, then most likely they're going to have them fill out CAQH profile. I would not have them do that until you're already in contact with the insurance company. The CAQH is something you can kind of do, after the fact, not after the fact in the sense that they're going to panel you without doing it, but you can start to talk to the insurance company to decide whether or not, when's a good time to do it. In my opinion, is you don't want to have all these LMs or these people kind of doing the CAQH profile when it's not needed, or if you're not sure if you're going to go with insurance. But if you're not going to take insurance, then clearly a CAQH profile is not going to be needed or required for an LMSW. So hopefully that answers your question. And then someone asked, this is a really good question, do I need to update my NASW liability coverage with my PLLC as well as my CAQH? Yes. So you are going to want to let your insurance company know, your malpractice insurance company know that you've established a PLLC. So you want to let them know that you've established a PLLC. They're going to ask you if you have employees, whether they're W-2 or 1099. And then they're going to go ahead and make sure that you're covered that way. Now, a couple things to be aware of for that, actually, that is really important. I personally have the NASW assurance policy, malpractice insurance. When you have employees and you're doing a virtual practice or you're doing any virtual care, there is a limitation to how much. They provide cyber liability. I know that NASW provides that. I'm not sure if others do. But the cyber liability is limited in how many employees it's going to cover at one time. So for NASW, I think it's 3, right? So if you have more than 3 employees, you have to kind of figure that out with them. But at the end of the day, the NASW and most of these malpractice, they've worked with tons of people who have established PLLCs and group practices. So when you get on the phone with them, it really only takes a couple of minutes. Hey, I established a PLLC. I have some employees. They're going to change your coverage. And then in the upcoming year, they may change your rates that year, but most likely once you renew your contract, then your rates are going to go up with employees and things like that. Great question. Really great question. When you establish your PLLC and you start hiring employees, you want to update all the entities that you need to. So it's going to be an insurance company, right? You're going to want to do that. And that's the big one, is kind of making sure your liability coverage knows that you have a group practice now and that you have employees. Absolutely. So if you don't have employees yet, I think it wouldn't hurt. You can give the insurance company a call and let them know that I established my PLLC And then I called the insurance company and said that I have a PLLC and I didn't have any employees yet. I did that just to kind of see, which I advise everyone to do. Just give them a call, let them know you've established it. Even if you don't have employees, see what they tell you. They most likely will tell you, well, then nothing needs to change right now. Most likely, but call to confirm. I would definitely err on the side of calling to let them know you've established the PLLC. And then once again, when you hire your employee, you're going to want to let them know again, I've hired. So you are going to be calling the insurance company a couple of times, but the malpractice people are going to be the first people you update with any changes you make, because you want to make sure you never go uncovered. Okay, when it comes to your malpractice and your hiring and your PLLC. Another thing you might want to consider is if you are hiring employees, have them get their own malpractice insurance as well. I'm going to hesitate to talk about whether it's required or not, but it may be helpful for you to ask them to get their own malpractice insurance in addition to yours as well. But yes, malpractice as a group practice is super important. Cool. I see more people have kind of joined. I'll be here, as long as you guys. Well, I'll be logging out maximum probably around 11:45 or so. But if you have questions, please put them in the chat. I think I've answered most so far. But if more come in, I'm happy to answer them from now until 11:45. No problem. I'm planning to do more of these. I think I'm going to try. I can't promise. I'm going to try to do them. I would really like to do them once a week, but I'm going to try, maybe at least a couple of times a month where I have a live session. So I'm glad this was helpful for you. And if another thing you can add in the comments is other things you'd want to know about and other kind of topics that might be helpful to go over. I'm really happy to kind of set up these kind of office hours to help other providers out there. What payroll system is best when having W-2s? Another great question. Another thing that providers don't talk enough about. I use Gusto. So there are going to be a couple options out there. So basically, this is, you're bringing up some really good points. A payroll software is going to be required if you have W-2. This is because payroll is extremely complicated. There are like tons of different taxes that you just can't do it yourself. So there's a couple options that you can go with. One of the more expensive options is to have an accountant or an accounting firm do it for you. That's going to be quite expensive. There is going to be softwares, which is really great in our day and age. There's a lot of startup companies and a lot of different places that will kind of build out tools that help us. And so there's another one called Gusto. This is typically recommended for like a brand new group practice because it's Gusto is a really great platform that allows you to kind of do kind of onboard. So they have onboarding tools. You can put a job application on there. You can do your employment agreement on there. They have really awesome customer support. And then they're also going to allow you to kind of get benefits for your employees down the line. They allow you to do payroll. And they're priced pretty well. And the way I think about Gusto, it's like a great platform for like a very small to like a mid-sized business. I would imagine bigger businesses use them, but Gusto is going to be this great like entry-level platform for payroll. I really like it. I see people complaining about it. I haven't had issues yet. I'm not saying that they don't, but I've had really good experience with them so far. And then if you have, so we have like an accounting firm, which is like a lot. You have Gusto, which is going to be what I recommend. Now, one thing to keep in mind is no matter which way you go, it's a learning curve. All right. It's also an investment. So paying for a payroll software is going to be something you invest in, and it's going to be an additional cost. There's going to be a flat rate for the service, and then there's going to be a per employee rate as well. They're always changing, so just check their website for those rates. And then if you grow into a bigger business and you want to offer things like, this is where it gets pretty exciting. If you want to offer gym memberships and commuter benefits, and you want to offer health insurance, you can go to something, a platform kind of like JustWorks. There's this company called JustWorks. And then there's there's a bunch of companies out there that basically outsource HR. Now those places, if you just look, it's called a PEO. It's a PEO. If you Google PEO, you're going to see tons of options out there. And this would be something I would say that you might want to grow into. Much more expensive, but you'll be able to provide like really cool benefits to your employees at some point down the line. So there's different options, but if you're just starting, Gusto is awesome. Check it out. They've been really good. Should we get background checks on 1099 contractors? That's a really great question. I'm someone who always err on the side of caution. So if you're able to do a background check, it might be really helpful for you. As far as what's required, that's something you are going to want to check with to see if it's really required. But if you're using a tool like Gusto, background checks are built in. You can just go ahead and do it. Now, background checks are going to have an additional cost, right? And then if you're someone working with children or something, I would imagine there's going to be different requirements for background checks. So check into the requirements. But if you want to err on the side of caution, you can do background checks. A place like Gusto is going to be able to do it with you and for you, make it quite seamless for you. So I would, great question. Okay, yeah, so another question was about places like Alma, Headway, Lyra, and how do you work with a 1099 through there? Are you able to just, if you're still on, are you able to clarify what do you mean by work with them in terms of the W-2 or 1099? Are you talking about you being a 1099 or, can you just elaborate in the chat and I'll answer the question? Let's see. Oh, so like if you hire a 1099, can you panel them with Alma, Headway, or Lyra? Is that what you're asking? It's a good question. So if you, so basically it's up to you as so you have to think about it this way. If you hire a 1099, they're technically not an employee, but basically you guys are deciding what it is that you're providing them and what it is they're providing you. So for some 1099s, what you'll see is popular is that the person who's bringing on the 1099 is going to provide things like billing tools. You're going to provide maybe the access to Simple Practice or the EHR, these kinds of things. So it's up to you to decide what you're going to provide to that 1099. And now, if you can have the 1099 get paneled with Alma, no. So Alma is not able, at least from right now, from what I've talked to them about, with Alma, you're not able to panel anyone underneath you as a group practice owner at all. It's just individuals and that's it. Headway, they do have a group practice option. And in that regard, you can panel your 1099 with Headway. You can reach out to Headway and say, hey, I'm hiring an employee. If it's a W-2, that's one thing. You can say I'm hiring a 1099 and they'll get them paneled as well. So yes, you can do that. If you have a 1099, you can, and that's that might be one of the reasons why they sign up to work with you is because you're able to do all that on their behalf. A couple things that people ask though, kind of in relation to that is like, they ask, well, why would a 1099 work with, with you if they could just do it on their own? And that's when you're going to have to think about, are you teaching the 1099? Are you providing them with support and tools that they don't have access to? These kinds of things. But at the end of the day, to answer your question, yes, if you have a 1099 and they're fully licensed, then you are able to panel them with Headway. Great questions. These are great questions. And I'm really glad you guys are asking these questions. These are questions that I got so stuck on, and they're so hard to find the answers to. Yeah. So when you're thinking about an employee, there's a lot of things you have to think through. I think with places like Alma and Headway, which are really awesome, they provide really great access to care. You have to kind of think about what is your vision for your group practice, right? It's not going to be as simple as hiring another LC to work with you, because with Alma, Headway, and all these kinds of things, it becomes much easier to work for yourself. So what else is it that you're able to kind of offer, and that's where it comes down to thinking about your group practice, the vision for it. What do you want to do? What's your intention? That kind of thing. I also saw that Simple Practice had logged in for a moment. Really glad to see that. Thank you for the support. Just going through the chat here to see if I missed anything. Okay. Is a CPA needed to help with taxes? So, yeah. Now, it depends what you mean by needed. Is it required? No. It's not required. Is it recommended? Yeah, definitely. Because now it's going to get very complicated. Your taxes, if you hire a W-2, your payroll and the numbers and the taxes, like, although Gusto does it for you, at the end of the year, when you kind of have to think about your taxes and you have to think about, all the, the different kind of income that comes in and the payroll and the taxes that were taken out. I mean, you can see even as I talk about it, it's complicated. There's so many different numbers and things that are beyond kind of my scope of expertise. So yeah, it's highly recommended that you have a CPA help you. Oftentimes the CPA is going to say, get something like Gusto, and then they're going to help you kind of at the end of the year. If you're looking for a CPA, I'm going to link down below. I have a free private practice directory that comes with all sorts of like word of mouth recommend. I've been building that for a while. If you don't have access to it, I'm going to send you there's a link down below. There's like different lawyers and CPAs on there that or word of mouth referrals, basically. You can find a CPA through there. But yeah, recommended you have a CPA when you start the group practice. Ooh, so we got a couple more moments. Again, I'm happy to answer a couple more questions with the time we have left. And this recording will be up for you to watch later. You can share with people if you think it might be helpful. And then again, I'm hoping to do more of these kind of office hours things. So if you come up with questions, feel free to email them to me, message them to me, things like that. Yeah, so that's a good question about the simple steps. I actually made a video about that, about how to hire a W-2. I actually go through all the steps in that video. If you Google how to hire, you're going to see it. And I walk you through all the steps because the steps, I wish they were simple. I do my best to kind of go through it systematically. But the steps are not that simple because there's like, you have to basically, there's a couple things you need to do. And I guess I'll try to simplify them here so that when you watch the video, you can kind of have a bit more background. So the first step is deciding whether or not you're going to hire a 1099 or W-2, right? The second thing is if you decide to hire the W-2, there's a couple things you need to do before you even hire. And this is going to be, the first thing is going to be to open up a taxpayer's account. And that link is going to be in the video. It's called How to Hire. In the description of that video, you're going to get a link to this. Now, this is New York State specific, but if you're from another state, this should give you a good roadmap to kind of what to Google and what to look up for your own state. But you are going to want to open up a New York State taxpayer's account. And that might not be the right term, but basically you're looking for the account that you open up as someone who's going to be providing payroll basically someone who's going to hire employees. Now, again, the link is there. So I might get the wording here wrong, but go to that link in that description. That's the first thing you're going to need to do. It's really not that hard. There's going to be organizations that can do it for you. So if you start with Gusto and you sign up to that platform, they'll do it with you. They'll do it for you. So you can do it that way. They will charge you a good amount of money for it. You can do it on your own. It's not that hard. Just follow the steps on the website. They've made it pretty easy. And then from there, you're going to need to get different types of insurance. So you're going to need to get workers' compensation. You're going to need to get paid family leave and short-term disability. The paid family leave and short-term disability kind of go together. And then you have the workers' compensation. That's another one. So 3 different insurances, but technically they're kind of under 2 different kind of contracts. This is where it gets confusing. Right. So the workers' compensation and for the paid family leave, short-term disability, you again can do this through Gusto. So it will be, if this sounds very daunting, what I would do is sign up for Gusto and then have them help you with the taxpayer's account and have them help you with the workers' comp and the short-term and paid family leave. They'll help you with it. They have great customer support. They can help you go through that process. So I would encourage you to try that route. That might be really a helpful way to do it. Now you can do it on your own. It just, obviously, as even I talk about it, it sounds cumbersome, right? Like the 3 different insurances, but it's really only 2. It's very complex. Yeah, so that's a good, but check out that video, how to hire. It'll be down in the description. And then, so is it needed if you only have 2 employees? I think in New York State that it doesn't really matter how many employees you have. You are required to do the short-term disability, paid family leave, and workers' comp. I think that's a requirement no matter what. Check that out first. Check that out on just type in New York State employee labor laws, and you'll be able to find that answer specifically. Now, there are some things that you don't have to provide if you have a certain number of employees, right? So there's like days off. There's certain policies for days off. In terms of providing benefits, there's certain things that do change based on how many employees you have. But go in and just type in New York State labor laws. And again, if you're doing W-2, you now have much more clarity about what you're looking at. So hopefully that gives you a good starting point. Yep. So so for this video, we went through a lot today. Hopefully that was helpful for you. Again, everything will be in the description below. I'm going to be doing more of these in the future. So I'm really glad you guys were able to log in today. I hope you guys found this helpful. So we'll end the stream here. And then, feel free to share this. Good speaking with some of you guys. And we'll see you guys soon.